If you are stuck in a fear of failure, you will never succeed. Your self-doubt is human, but it's not helpful to building a business which, at its core, is based on you. When you say it's all about you, talk to me more about that. Because often when we get into something that we think we love, we want to make it about other people, right? If I want to be of service, as you've alluded to earlier, if we are doing it because we're driven to impress or to satisfy a parental figure, as we talked about at the beginning, consciously or unconsciously, we're doing it for other people. And so making it all about us sounds to some counterintuitive, to some just the wrong thing to do.
Right. Well, look, when you write articles for Forbes, it pays to have grabby titles. And the truth is, it is all about you, and it's also not about you. And you can flip that round. So the extent to which it is all about you is that you are your driving force, your engine, and your only biggest resource. And whether you succeed or fail is up to you. So we often don't own that power. And I think a lot of people start companies. I think I possibly started my own company to avoid having it be all about me. If I send you a proposal and it comes on letterhead that says Remy Blumenfeld, it feels very exposing. If you say yes to that, I'm amazing, and that's wonderful, of course. But if you say no, I feel despondent and rejected. And so I think that attachment, which often comes with entrepreneurs and with professional people, that I am my work, I am this painting, I am this sculpture, I am this play, that can play out in the workplace. And so it can become very easily all about us in a negative way. And it's not, to that extent, it's not about you. Whether you earn $1 million or are penniless is not about you, right? Someone said yes or someone said no to your request, and that's just a transaction in the present. Has nothing to do with your core values. It has nothing to do with your spirit, your essence, what matters to you, who loves you. So all the things that you still are, whether someone or the universe says yes or no. But it is all about you to the extent that you own your choices, you decide how you spend your time, and you are your biggest resource, and you have a lot of power in the way that you operate in the universe. That's all about whether it is about you or whether it isn't about you. But the quote was about fear and how that can hold us back, fear of failure. Because really that's the thing most of us are most terrified of. And the reason we're terrified of it is because you and I, and everyone watching, listening, are descended from the most fearful.
Those who survived.
Those that survived. Because thousands of years ago, there were real threats. There were lions and tigers and things that killed you in the night, and strangers with spears and rock crevasses and ice falls. And there were a million real physical threats. So listening to that voice in your head that said, don't leave the village, stay by the fire, don't leave the cave, was really important to do. And luckily for you and I, our ancestors did that. So we're here. But we've descended from the people who didn't leave the cave or the village or the fire because they survived. And yet that epigenetically exists today in our body. So we respond to risk as though the threat were death. Don't send that email. Don't apply for that job. Don't say hello to that person at the gym you fancy. Just, well, what? You'll look foolish. You'll fail. They'll say no. Yes, maybe, but no one's going to die. But we respond to it in our body as though someone's going to die. Us. It's like, it feels like, you'll feel it in your stomach, you'll feel it in your chest, you'll feel it in your throat, you'll feel it in your shoulders, you'll feel it with heat, you'll feel it with cold. You will feel afraid. What you're really afraid of is failure. But if you said, are you afraid of failure? Oh, I'm not afraid of failure, but your body responds as though you are. So we don't take risks very often because we're afraid of rejection and failure. And because it's occurring in our body as though that's life-threatening. And the truth is, without risking failure, we'll never leave the cave. We'll never leave the village. We'll never leave the fire. We'll never leave our room. will never try anything. And, back to that discussion about, so how do super successful people get to be super successful? The answer is very simple. They take risks. And they fail. And then they take more risks. And they fail. And then they succeed at something. And they take more risks and fail. It's not like, we only celebrate the failure, the success in life. And I would love us to celebrate the failure more, because the failure is where the learning is. I mean, even for me as a coach, when people introduce me, when people talk about my work, they invariably talk about the success stories, the high points. And I have very little to teach from those moments, right? It was a confluence of things that worked out well, but there's not much learning there. Where I can really add value is in the millions of pounds I lost as a result of mistakes I made. The horrible years I went through as a result of bad choices. That's where I can help you learn, because that's where I have the most learning, because I'd like you to avoid those mistakes. But the mistakes are where the learning is. The failure is where the learning is. The failure allows us to grow, and actually the failure is how we succeed. Someone once said to me, if you want to know what a career in TV sounds like, it sounds like this. No, 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 yes, no, 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 no. They were right. But you have to take all those no's to get to the yes. You'll never get the yes otherwise. Yeah. If like 3 no's is too many, just forget it. You might as well stay at home.
And this brings us on to lesson number 4. Be committed, not attached. As a leader, you are ultimately responsible for every result you produce, but that is different from making it about you. You just outlined the difference there. But let's define what you mean by attachment.
Okay, so when I'm attached, I feel it in my body. There's a heaviness. I feel this is all about me, I can invite you to lunch in a way that is attached, right? Would you like to have lunch with me next Tuesday? I'm going to make my world famous lasagna and you're going to love it. Can you come? I'm attached because I want you to say yes. So it doesn't feel light. It doesn't feel joyful because it's not really about the conversation we're going to have. It's not really about the connection, not even about the lasagna. It's about me. Because if you say yes, I will feel validated. And if you say no, I will feel rejected. And the sad thing is that mostly when somebody else is attached to a project, to a plan, to an invitation to lunch, the other person says no. That lunch invitation did not sound like fun. So attachment is when we make it about me, we make it personal, and we make the expected outcome, which we desperately hope will be a yes, all about us. And because if it's a no, that means I'm not good enough. So I desperately need you to say yes to this project so I will feel good enough about myself. Well, that doesn't feel like a compelling reason to buy. In fact, it feels like a compelling reason to walk away because it's not going to be any fun. We're not going to be able to make the changes we need to make it work. It's not going to be a collaborative thing. It's all about you. And quite frankly, I don't need it. Whether it's lasagna or a 6-part series about the royal family, I don't need it. I don't want it. So attachment kills. And listen, I often have this struggle with creative people because of course it's about me. I mean, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's my project. It came from my experience. I wrote it. It's all about me. It's all about me. So sometimes it's so much all about them that they can't see. And also they feel like because it's in the arts, it should be all about them because this painting behind me was painted by someone with passion and creativity and was all about that passion and creativity going on the canvas. And if that isn't there, then it's nothing. But even with something as simple as a painting, where clearly, yes, it needs passion and creativity and someone's soul to go into it to make it work. It's not all about them. The minute it's finished, it's a product. It's something you either like or don't like. Here's my painting. Do you want it or not? If not, not about whether. So the painting can be all about you, But the moment of communication and presentation has to not be about you. You have to separate out, because otherwise no one will buy it. No one will want it. And why Damien Hirst is a successful artist is because no matter what space in which he creates, the moment where he becomes the artist who sells, it's a product. It's a marketable product. And he can stand back and talk about it as that. What's it worth? What will it sell for in 6 months? How many more have I got of this? It's a product. When we're attached, we make it all about us, and it's heavy for us and it's heavy for the other person. And usually no one buys it. So there is another way. And I think it's always important to be clear about it, because otherwise, so then what, right? If you're not attached, there's nothing. Truth is, you can be completely committed to an outcome. I will do everything in my power to make this happen. Everything. And that includes, if you wish, I may not even be involved in it, if that would make it happen. But I'm not attached in that scenario. So if I were to invite you to lunch in an unattached way, it would be, how would you feel about getting to know each other over lunch? When's a good time for you?
There's a lightness to it.
What would you like to eat? If not, it has to be this way, because you're accepting me or rejecting me. No, it's like, this is not just about me. I can sell you a painting in a way that's not attached, right? Because it hasn't yet been made. And when I make it, I can be totally attached to the process of making it, but when I sell it to you, I'm not. So being committed means you want something to happen and are willing to do anything, including walking away from it yourself in order to have it happen. So you have to look at where your commitment is. Is my commitment to spending time with you? In which case, we don't have to have lunch. We could have tea, we could have breakfast, we could go for a walk, we could go on the canal in a boat. Or is my commitment to the lasagna? In which case, I don't need to be there. You can have the lasagna anytime you want. I can give it to you frozen. I can give it to you in a pack. We can have vegetarian lasagna. We can have fish lasagna. You can have any kind of lasagna you want. You have to look at where your commitment is and then be entirely flexible, because all you want is to make it happen. But there's a freedom and a joy around that, which is actually what makes it happen.
It's the removal of the ego from the process, because, talking about the survivor within us all, it's the ego not realizing that its death isn't our death. An ego death, or us even letting it out of the way, is not anything bad happening to us. That's a mental reframe.
100%. But, and also you can simultaneously recognize that your ego is big and important. It needs to be tended, but not necessarily by someone saying yes to my world famous lasagna, right? I think there's a tendency amongst people to either be so blindly ego driven that they don't see that they're blindly ego driven, or so feeling like the ego is a bad thing that we can't have any ego. Truth is, we're all human beings, so we have a big ego. It needs to be seen and recognized and looked at, but why should it stop my dreams coming true? Why should my ego be the thing that gets in the way of you saying yes to buying this painting? I can have my big ego, express it and serve it, but not let it get in the way of people saying yes.
Why do we get in our own way like that? We've talked a lot so far about ways in which we essentially get in our own way. Sometimes our biggest challenger is actually ourselves. But why do we do that in the first place?
I mean, you'd ask some pretty big questions, right? But the truth, there's so many reasons why. There are so many reasons why. Maybe number one, we don't see it, right? We just don't see that we're getting in our own way. We're so keen to validate ourselves and get approval or get a yes that we find it hard to imagine that could be the thing stopping us. It's a little bit like busyness, which has such a high currency, right? Busyness has a currency, so no one even asks what you're doing if you say you're busy. Similarly, being passionate about something, so passionate and make it all about yourself in the West, right? That's seen as a good thing, mostly by people. Even though if they look under the surface of their reaction, their emotions, actually, it might stop them buying. But actually, we sort of think that entrepreneurs need to be that way. So there's all kinds of myths that support these ideas, that stop us from looking at it in a more clear-headed way. And then as human beings, more than anything, we desperately want to be right. So we get in our way and then are right about it, right?
Ironically.
Yeah, I am passionate about this and I should be passionate about it because I made it, I thought it, I wrote it. Of course, it's all about me. It's 100% about me and I need to be that way in order to make it happen. And because I've been doing that for the last 20 years, I'm certainly not going to let you in 20 minutes or 2 hours convince me any other way. Because I don't want to prove to myself that I've been wrong for 20 years. I would rather actually, on some level, almost not get any results and be right. I'd almost be right and continue the same way I'm doing, even though it's not getting results.
Just for the sake of serving.
Being right. People don't change, often not because they're incapable of seeing that it would be useful for them to do so, but because they want to defend, they need to defend how they have been acting up until that point, because they want to be right. It's much harder for them to say, oh my gosh, wow. If I'd known this 20 years ago, I could have sold so many more paintings, had so many more people eat my world-famous lasagna. But instead, it's easier to just go on being the way I have been, because that's how a chef should be. That's how a painter should be.
Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed that little snippet. Today was a bit of an extra little kind of bonus edit as a nice little refresher of an earlier episode. And this is for a few reasons. So first of all, I hope you enjoyed. Second of all, I've reached an important milestone in this show. My first milestone with this show was to reach 20 episodes. And the reason is because something like 90% of podcasts never get to episode 20. Most will fail, people will stop, they'll quit, and that's because a lot of people either aren't meant to be hosts, weren't meant to be podcasting in the first place, were doing it for the wrong reasons, all kinds of other stuff, and they've usually realized that by episode 20. But for me, this is a long-term play in the beginning of a lot more. Now, part of that realization has been testing. So something that's here right in front of me on my desk. My desk is very messy. One of the reasons is because of this. This is my podcasting journal. After every single episode, feedback goes into here, thoughts go into here, things I learned from the guests, but also reflections on what I need to do. And as a result, I've used the last 20 or so episodes, including bonus episodes, this snippet, solo episodes, to do lots of reflecting on what's right for the show and what's next. All of this to say that over the next couple of weeks, those of you who are regular listeners, I see you, I appreciate you, I want your feedback, so please come and give it to me. And I'd love for you to share the show with other people, because the brand is going to be updating, the purpose of the show is going to be updating, the communication of the show is all going to be updating. I want your feedback, and I want more people to come and engage with this so that it can evolve into something that is a resource for all of us on our journey. I hope you enjoy and are looking out, if you're seeing this in the right time frame, the rebrand that we're about to undergo. So thank you very much. Have a fantastic one, and I'll see you here very soon.